Y'all might want to hang on for this one. It's going to be a little bit of a wild ride. I just did something I hadn't done up to this point. I deleted an entire episode. I'm starting to realize that doing these kind of in the moment episodes is getting a lot harder for me, and I'm trying to figure out why. So I'm actually doing this one during my lunch break on Monday. Um, I've been kind of circling this episode for the last few days. It's not easy getting through these. Saturday, I was gonna do like my first big nerd out and just like totally go crazy on some completely insignificant technical topic. But 5 minutes later, I was crying my eyes out. I don't know why I was doing it. That stuff rolls in hard sometimes, and that's what happened Saturday. So as I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, I was like, fuck it. I just need to be me. And I was going to do then what I'm doing right now. I just kind of, hey, let's just finish this thought, get it out there and get it done. Saturday, the emotions won. I couldn't do it. And I had this great story about how once again, Tiny Chef saved my ass. And he did. Saturday was rough there for a little while. I had some new episodes on in the background that I hadn't caught up on, just, kind of listening to them. And I ended up doing a lot more watching than writing, almost to the point where I gave up on trying to do an episode for a little bit. His vulnerability, his sweet demeanor, his enthusiasm. I see those things as kind of reflections of who I want me to be. I mean, I try and be all of those things. Sheffy's ability to pull out of it, when he's having a crisis, he's much better at pulling out of it than I am. I got Oliver Klimt just now thinking about how sweet a 6-inch tall puppet is. And you know what? Cool. I mean, if that's who I am, that's who I am. I started watching this series on Max called Six Schizophrenic Brothers. Got me thinking a lot about my own mental health. 6 out of the 10 brothers in the Galvin family were all diagnosed schizophrenic, which, and wow, that's bananas. They talked about something I've been thinking about a lot myself. Were there signs with me? Was I a weird kid? I even asked my mom, y'all. Seriously, I asked her straight up if I was a weird kid. You know how they say, be careful what you ask? Yeah, yeah. My mom said, well, I wouldn't call you weird. So that little gem has been kind of bouncing around in my head for a little while. I mean, on the one hand, so what? I'm weird, right? And I'm kind of cool. I mean, I hope you listen this far, right? But to parents as I was growing up, it was super important to maintain an image. I remember one of my neighbors used to cut his grass in long pants and a golf shirt, and his direct next door neighbor was rarely seen in anything other than like a solid white t-shirt and shorts. And I remember that was kind of scandalous back then. I don't know why, it just was. A lot of things were scandalous. And I've been ruminating on that notion of scandalous. I mean, it's got to be difficult balancing being a good parent with keeping up appearances. And this is where I'm stuck, y'all. I mean, was I an embarrassment? My mom said no, and I believe her. But why do I feel that way? I mean, I heard all the good stories growing up, stories about, all these cool things I'd done as a kid. But I remember the looks. I remember a lot of the reactions. I started to dig into the reaction stuff a lot Saturday, and I just couldn't get it to work. It's not there yet. All right, so one last thing before I sign off today, because I got to keep it short. I've been leaving these different playlists in the descriptions, along with a listing of some mental health resources. That stuff is very important to me. We all need to talk. We all have problems. And today's playlist includes a guy named Orville Peck, and he's covering Saturday Night It's All Right for Fighting with Elton fucking John. Now, why is this such a big deal to me? All right, quick. Who is Orville Peck? See? So, Sir Elton John, and I wouldn't call myself a fan here, but I've got a lot of respect for the guy's work. he recorded a song with someone not many people have heard of, really. And Orville Peck recently did a song with Willie Nelson too. So some not too shabby company he's keeping. And I'd heard of Orville Peck, but only in that I knew he was a musician. Musician. So, so I Googled him and dude, he wears a mask, y'all. He has a problem with his face too. Look, I know all about Sia, and maybe that's why I liked Kiss so much growing up. I mean, nobody knew who they were, right? I know that's why I wanted to play goal in hockey. Goalies, especially goalies back in the 70s, man, they were like monsters to me. And I remember being a little kid, and the first time I consciously remember a guy putting his fingers in the eye holes to pick the mask off his face, I expected him to be a serial killer. I expected just this mess of a human. And he's just a normal dude, back in the 70s. But in that moment, man, I wanted to wear that mask. I wanted to have all that armor on me too. Um, that was important. Nothing could hurt that guy, right? Um, but I've always had this problem with my face. I didn't like pictures. They have all my pictures growing up are like off to the side because I hated them. I'd see a camera and just turn my head. And I mean, I get it. Introversion is a big part of me. I heard Dave Batista talk about his glasses once. They're his disguise. I've got my own disguise that I'm kind of dealing with myself. My introversion, my own issues, just staring totally at my face. I get it. It's just so cool to realize I'm not the only one. It's just such a silly mental thing, but it makes such a huge difference for me. All right, I'm going to leave you real quick with a work story. So, like every organization, we've got like a company directory with everyone who works there, their contact information and all that jazz. Well, at some point, having a picture on associated with your profile became like this humongous deal. And my management got this report of everyone who still had their default avatar. So I get the memo to update my avatar. Now, our default avatar at the time was like the silhouette of a user that was silver over a blue background. So I asked a buddy of mine to just swap the colors. Hey, I get off the list and I don't have to take my picture. Man, that was the dream. Eventually, people caught on. So I substituted my Bitmoji dude for myself. Eventually, I decided that if I wanted people to take me seriously, I needed to try and be more serious myself. So I got a headshot that I'm not overly troubled by. And I like Orville Peck's explanation of his masks. Basically, the mask is not what's important. Well put, man. I like that. Take care.